What I wanted to do today was to talk about some real-world examples of using AI. I find that there's an awful lot of presentations talk about what you might do with AI and machine learning, and most of them don't really talk about any specifics. So I'm going to try and talk about some places that we use them in the real world. And as Tristan mentioned, that retail trading has been rather a significant factor in markets in the last 12 months, and I'll show you an example of using it there. Just a 2-second overview of Man. As mentioned, we run a bit over $130 billion. We're the world's largest listed hedge fund business. We're also a very significant quant player, so about 70% of what we do is quantitative. And that's really where the ideas behind our machine learning implementations come from. But actually, we use it across both the quantitative and the discretionary fund management we do. And even we're starting to use it in some of the private market activities. So here, again, quick thing, you could read that. It takes the average human about 30 seconds to read that. The interesting thing is, with the developments that we've got in both the sort of coding process and the maths around machine learning, and also the hardware, we think that the people who build the technology on which we do our machine learning are just as important as the people who do the maths, if you like. We think in the time it took you to read those 3 sentences, our model can read about 18 million sentences. That's clearly quite a lot more than a human could get through. Why is that important? Well, there is just a huge amount of written information in finance, or written or equivalent. The one I always like to use is the thing, so call transcripts. So company earnings call. I'm a CEO of a company. Of a public company. I do an earnings call. I do 2 a year. Most companies do 4 a year. When you look at the volume of listed companies there are in the world, that gets you, even excluding Chinese companies, that gets you to 20, 30,000 earnings calls a year. They typically last an hour. CEOs typically want to make them relatively dull. So we use a machine language process. Now here, we started with a structured learning process that we talked about before with the sorts of language we use in the normal world. And we actually had to move to another level of unstructured learning because the sentence construct, the use of emojis is just very different than we use in normal language as the strength of sentiment grows or reduces. And it can be used in the discretionary area to help people avoid getting caught by things which are suddenly a sort of hot flavor stock. And so it's been a very helpful way for us to give a valuable tool into the armory of the discretionary fund managers. And on each individual trade, it can be a noticeable cost. Over the course of a year, with the volume of trading you might want to do, it can make a real difference to the outcome you get on the returns in your portfolio. So we recognized this and thought, well, how do we build something that can take the other side? And this is where a version of machine learning was really, really helpful. One of the things is you want to observe whether what you're doing is working or not working. So in real version, we have multiple ways of executing, different brokers to execute, different exchanges to execute, different algorithms we'll use. So there might be 20 or 30 different ways of executing.